It is such an honor and a pleasure for me to be here to celebrate Billee and also to celebrate the book. So did you want to read us a little bit since we are here to...
Maybe I'll read at the end.
You want to read out? Okay. I guess the place I wanted to start, this is about we, right? So I wanted to hear a little bit more about the we in your journey. There's that famous quote, if I've seen further, it's from standing on the shoulders of giants. So when you think about your own journey, can you give us an example of one of the giants that you're standing on the shoulders of? Maybe a mentor or someone who's been personally significant to you as you've gone from who you were before to the person who's written this book.
Sure, I think a great person to talk about is actually Faith Popcorn. For those of you who don't know who she is, she's one of the leading futurists of all time, and she taught me a lot about how to really appreciate culture. But the story behind that is really funny because I was 30, I just actually lost both of my parents, and I was not in a really good place, but my career was top of mind, and I was pushing forward aggressively, and I was made the youngest EVP in history of Weber Shandwick, and that wasn't enough for me, so I said, can I have a global practice? And they said, Billy, we just made you an EVP. And I said, okay, so what's next? And they told me to go back to my office and to figure out how to prove myself over the next 6 months. And when I went back to my office, my assistant handed me a piece of paper that said, call Jill Faith Popcorn. And I said, I cannot believe that these people want me to represent an aspirational snack food, because I had absolutely no idea who she was. But once I figured it out, Faith was on in her career, but she taught me to tap into one of my greatest talents, which is to understand the movement of culture and to be able to foresee the future, which has really been critical to who I've become and where I am. And I think that probably is a really good example of a personal story of we that started out, I don't know, I'm going to be 43, believe it, but that was 13 years ago.
So this book is packed with examples and stories of brands, of leaders, of companies that are pointing us to that future, are pointing us towards new ways of doing business that are better for the world and better for society. And God knows every day we open the newspaper and we need more of that, or we go on the website and we see the need for more of that. If you had to pick one example, brand, leader, company, that particularly wowed you, I am asking you to play favorites, what would that be?
I'm not just saying this because you are affiliated with Fast Company. My closest friends, who's in the audience tonight, used to be the publisher of Fast Company. But when I went out on my own, Christine Oskowski, who's here tonight, she hired me, my first assignment for brand anthropology, and we created a concept about branded content that was called the Movable Feast. It was designed to create a storytelling agent that could make the Fast Company Most Creative People issue accessible to everyone. And during the filming of that project, I had the privilege of meeting Neil Blumenthal, who is the CEO of Warby Parker. And to me, Warby Parker is not just an amazing eyeglass company. It's not just a trendy and cool brand that has a Cuban Renaissance headquarters in Venice. What it is a reimagining of business. They reinvented the entire eyewear industry by taking out the middleman, and they were really one of the pioneers to pave the way for where we are today. And during the taping of that project, I had the privilege of meeting Neil and doing a piece called Innovation Therapy, where we laid Neil down on a couch and really went into his head and pretended we were providing him with some kind of guidance. But that would be my answer on that one.
Speaking of guidance, there are a lot of lessons, as I mentioned. What's the hardest one in this book? The hardest lesson to implement, and maybe the one, if we can get a little more personal, that's the most challenging for you as you think about your constant transformation?
I think the hardest lesson is understanding that failure is the new success. I think you have to go really, really deep to figure out what your greatest weakness is and have the courage to face what that is to be able to get to a level where you never imagined that you could be. I think that really pushing yourself to a place of discomfort, I mentioned this in a story that the great Denise Ristori wrote about with me yesterday in Forbes, actually. She got me to really get to the heart of who I am, and I think that's what it is that pushing yourself to a point of discomfort where you have to go beyond the boundaries that you've known before is the only way that you're going to innovate over and over again. And I think that what I learned from doing that, and the rigor that I learned from doing that, is really that the illumination that I think is most important, which is that innovation is not a moment, it's a discipline, and one must train themselves to understand that.
So you mentioned discomfort. The reason this book is important, I think, is because the ideas are still countercultural, right? They're leading edge because the business world hasn't changed enough yet, because there is so much need in their life for a different way of looking at things.
Right.
So when it is so uncomfortable, and because it is hard, how do you personally stay committed to your true north? How do you stay grounded and on that path towards transformation when it's just not that easy?
Well, I think it becomes really simple when you say, do I want to be like everyone, or do I want to be one of a kind? And that's the mantra that guides me on a daily basis. You know, I think that that's what the sharing economy has paved the way for with technology. Technology is not just a great connector, it's just not a vehicle of infrastructure. What it is an equalizer for everyone to be able to have their voice, their idea, and their innovation heard. And if you don't choose to take advantage of that, if you don't choose to apply whatever your passion is to be the best version of what you can be, you know, I think that you're missing the boat, and I think that that's what pushes me every day is I don't just want to be one of many, I want to be one of one. And that would be the advice that I would give anybody today, because it's not only the fact that I think that that's what defines greatness, I think it's a greatness that's accessible for the first time to many, many people, and I would encourage everyone to take advantage of that opportunity.
Give us a little greatness now. Will you read us that?
Just a little, because I don't want anyone to be bored. I'll be bored and I'll be like, can we open the bar again? But just a little bit. So this is the introduction, a little bit from the House of Wade. Most of the time, change, especially global change, happens gradually. So gradually, in fact, that we barely notice that anything's different. Time passes, one day changes in another, but we don't usually notice the hands of the clock moving. Once in a while, though, forces combine and a cataclysmic shift occurs that changes everything about life. One day, dinosaurs roam the earth, dominating the food chain so effectively that they tower over the rest of creation with arrogance and ease. The next day, an asteroid hits, the Jurassic gives way to the Cretaceous, and 75% of all species become extinct in the blink of a geological eye. As in the natural world, sudden cataclysms do occur in the culture and the economy. One moment, we were feeding ourselves and our families out of our own kitchen gardens, making everything we use by hand, and using our only currency, the ability to trade and share with our neighbors in order to survive the long winters. The next moment, we found ourselves living in cities, working long hours far from home, and buying rather than making or sharing what we needed to survive. The things that had fueled us before, community, creativity, cooperation, and sharing, had completely outlived their usefulness. Own your own became the dream and the driving force of the age. The me economy had begun, and then the recession of 2008 occurred and everything changed once again. We are still living in the long tail of the Industrial Revolution. We still go to work in offices and factories and mills. We live in cities and suburbs instead of villages. We purchase mass-produced goods rather than fashioning our own tools, and we are still dealing with the isolation, alienation, lack of connection, and diminishment of the singular human hand and voice that mass production and industrialization ultimately brought about. But all that is changing, and it is changing quickly. After the destruction of the 2008 global financial collapse, once again, culture and commerce turned on a dime, and nothing would ever be the same again. Today, we are standing amid the ashes. What once prevailed no longer functions, and new species are emerging. The I, me, mine mindset of the industrial era came to an end in the crash of 2008. In its place came an economy and a culture built on a reimagined version of our core American competencies: socialization, sharing, trust, purpose, passion, creativity, and collaboration. We are building an economy of we-commerce and returning to our small community origins, only now our village is global in scale. It is now possible to stand in solidarity with people on the other side of the world because of an idea, and for one person to launch a handmade, innovative product and compete with big brands for the global customer's attention, loyalty, and consumer dollars. This means that not only the rules of the road to profitability, but also the very definition of success itself has changed. A new success story is being told with a whole different set of characters and plot twists, and with a reinvented vision of what the American dream actually means. Today, we are living in the economy that Andy Warhol first saw decades ago. 50 years after the introduction of the factory, Warhol's idea of blending art with commerce and beauty with business is coming to fruition. We are living and working in a sharing-centered economy where the first rule for how to succeed in business is to understand that now, more than ever before, united we stand and divided we fall.